Well, I think that first of all, they had to let Comey testify. It really would have put the onus back on the White House in terms of saying that they were scared of what Comey's going to say. Now, remember, the one good thing that we do know about Comey's testimony coming up, JD, is that he met with Robert Mueller before, which means that Robert Mueller feels that he cannot be a witness. I would assume that Mueller thinks that he's not going to be a witness on obstruction of justice, which, by the way, JD can tell us that maybe Mueller is not investigating obstruction of justice. When I think about what Comey's going to basically say is he's going to say he felt uncomfortable during some of these conversations with the president, and it's the response is, well, if you felt uncomfortable, did you think it was actual obstruction of justice? Can you point to any facts, any evidence that shows that this administration, that this White House has been trying to obstruct this investigation into this alleged Russian interference with the election? And he won't be able to, and that'll be the end of it. And then, of course, the Praetorian Guard media will make a big deal about it, but there's essentially going to be nothing there, I suspect, JD. And I think it's going to be important for Trump supporters to be able to get that message out post Comey testimony, because we do know, JD, as the president said, Comey is a showboat. Comey cares about Comey, and Comey's thinking about his speaking fees. He's thinking about which law firm he's going to go to, and he's thinking about his political future.
And to use another term, I believe it was Karl Rove, and certainly no love lost between this president and Karl Rove. But he said, here's my scientific term for James Comey, a hot dog. Now, perhaps this is from the realm of great minds think alike, but your assessment seems to be shared by the esteemed psychiatrist and noted Washington pundit, Dr. Charles Krauthammer. Here's what Dr. K said the other night on the Fox News channel.
Here, there's one question. Did the president obstruct justice? That's what everybody is waiting for. I don't think there's anything of great interest other than that. And his answer, I think, is going to be obvious. He will navigate to a point where he says, well, there might have been some pressure, but it's not obstruction. Why? Because if it were obstruction, then he is indicting himself.
And so Comey, being a smart lawyer, will not indict himself. But I want to return to another subject, Sam, that again comes in the realm of the courtroom of public opinion. You say your suspicion is that the dominant media culture, the alphabet networks, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the usual suspects, will try to seize on something in the Comey testimony and treat it as a revelation. So I guess my question to you is, Counselor, knowing that technically there is no law that governs this, will this partisan press corps ever totally indict itself in the minds and the perception of the American public with their continued insistence on fake news and this vendetta against President Trump?
That's a very good point you make. First of all, they do have, let's say we all respect the First Amendment, and unlike their side, we're not going to say that there's fake news and people should not be able to print certain things and try as the left is now trying to say is that certain websites should not be allowed on Google algorithms. But what I really think, and I was talking to the White House about this yesterday, is if you look at these articles that have come out since Comey was fired, particularly from the New York Times and reports from CNN, but there was a report from NBC I want to mention yesterday, they've consistently been wrong, JD. Remember, Comey's fired. The New York Times then reports that before Comey was fired, days before, he went to Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein, asked for more resources. Well, then acting FBI Director McCabe says in testimony a day later, that's not true. We have all the resources we want. They then report on these memos. But what was the way they reported on them? They said, Michael Schmidt, the reporter there, says, 2 people read me the memos. He had never seen them, but he decided to report on them, and he said this in a podcast because he didn't believe the White House. He thinks the White House is lying when they denied that, the veracity of those memos. And then you follow that up with all these leaks that, you know, the media is now becoming, Mark Levin talked about this last night, they're becoming so brazen that they flat out say our sources are intelligence officials or former intelligence officials, aka Obama holdovers and Obama White House officials. Our sources, as in a report they did, the NBC News yesterday against Jared Kushner, 2 congressional sources told us that they plan to ask Jared certain questions. Okay, those are Democrat congressmen, senators, or staffers. And it's very important to say that, you know, they've got to get the message out that innuendo, that bad sourcing, that this is our response to this, that's what counts here. And I think that, you know, they also have to be careful, though, JD. I don't want to give such a long response here, but let's also say something to be careful about. The president should not be tweeting tomorrow during Comey's testimony as much as he may want to, because anything he says to counter Comey's testimony could be brought up in the hearing if he's doing it during the testimony, or it could lead to further questions. Just let Comey's testimony speak for itself. Comey's not going to do a great job. There's going to be a lot of holes in what he says, and move on. Move on.